Welcome to Rocket Ship, the podcast where web developers learn the skills and secrets to ship awesome mobile apps. I'm Simon Grimm, creator of Galaxies.dev, and today's guest is Brendan Austin, who's a software engineer passionate about weightlifting and sports, especially baseball. I don't know why. And he's trying to become a solopreneur. So welcome to the show, Brendan.
Thank you. Thank you. Really pleased to be here.
Yeah, we made it, although I really hate time zones. Once again, it confirms why I hate time zones. So Brendan, book an appointment in my calendar. I think you said you were in Mexico?
Yeah, last week or 2 weeks ago, I was in Mexico. I originally booked it for 7 a.m. thinking it was Pacific Standard, and I actually booked it for 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
I vote so much for like a world clock. I don't know how the concept could work out, but I hate these time zones. It's always such a pain in the backside. Can we just get rid? Also, like we changed clocks I think 2 weeks ago, and then we're on winter time, and the U.S. is not yet on winter time, so everyone's just confused.
Yeah, it is really confusing. We also changed clocks just this past Sunday, actually. So. Yeah, it seems like there is no global. There should be some type of global clock that everybody can reference.
Maybe we can like use the moon time or some standard like that. I don't know. I heard concepts.
Moon time?
Yeah, something like that. So I saw on your profile on Twitter that you went from a PT, personal trainer, to software engineer in 19 months. So I think you can best describe what you currently do. And why you actually made that change and where you come from. So give us the story. That's going to be an epic story. I mean, you could like write a very viral post about how I became a successful software engineer in 18 months.
Yeah, that's been on the back burner. I know that I definitely need to write more about that. It's crazy how fast it happened for me. So yeah, like you said, I was working as a personal trainer full time at a really popular gym in the States called Equinox. I don't know if you guys have those over there in Germany yet.
Isn't that like the Latin word for horse? Equinox.
I don't know about that.
I don't think we have that brand here.
Okay, got you. Yeah. It might be strictly an American brand then. But it's a really popular gym here. A lot of type A individuals work out there, and I was young, still trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do. I had dropped out of college. I went to junior college for like 4 years. Finally transferred to a university, and still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think at the time I was studying nutrition, and I just realized that it wasn't worth my time or money. So I went personal training full time, and the clients that I were training were mostly tech based. I was training out of the Silicon Valley, and as you can imagine, a lot of these people. I had clients who were working for Microsoft, Workday, Google, a lot of other smaller companies as well. And there was one client in particular who really piqued my interest. He had been a software engineer. I think he was a manager at the time. And he'd been working in the industry for about 10, 12 years, was a happy guy. He had a family. I really just appreciated his lifestyle, and I kind of looked up to him, and I started asking him questions. He was a Python engineer, and that was the first language that I learned, and it did pique my interest. Although I never actually used Python in a production environment at all. I quickly learned that web development was what I wanted to get into. I just love the idea of being able to design something and then turn it into real life for other people to appreciate. And so that's how I got my foot in the industry. I just studied, the basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript stuff. And I got a job at a startup after about, I want to say, 18 months of studying. It's probably worth mentioning. My first job I actually got during COVID. So a lot of that time when I was studying to become a software engineer, there's a lot of downtime. I didn't really have any clients to train. So got my first job at a startup as a web developer. And luckily enough, they had an opportunity to also work on their React Native app. I knew nothing
Nice.
about React Native. I didn't even know that I could write mobile apps in JavaScript. And so I learned on the job, and I worked on that app for about a year. Um, that was an amazing experience, and that alone got me my next job, which was at a company called Network, spelled NTWRK. Um, and I worked there for about a year and a half. And they are essentially a live streaming shopping platform for Gen Z. Uh, Really cool app. They sell collectibles, sneakers, stuff like this. This was kind of like my first introduction to TypeScript. And then after about a year and a half, I decided that it was time to move on to the next chapter, and that's where I'm currently at now. I'm at a company called Lark. They are they specialize in healthcare and diabetes prevention, and we also use artificial intelligence. It's like the hot topic of today, right? And we're actually in the middle of working with ChatGPT, using some of the open AI tools that they're providing. So some really exciting technology that I've been able to work on. But yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean that's it's so cool when you have like an interesting story and not just say, hey, I've been working at I don't know Audi for 10 years now. I mean that's cool and impressive, and I know, but I don't know. You, how old are you? You're
I'm
something
28.
bet yeah, so also still pretty young. I feel like that's our generation who doesn't really like to stick with one job for very long. Like my parents or so. I think my mom worked in her job for like 50 years or something, or maybe like, yeah, probably 50 years, like from getting started at 17 until the very end. And I feel like this is not a common thing that our generation is doing anymore. So I'm 33. I mean, I haven't worked a whole lot in my life because I went self-employment like 7 years ago.
Nice.
But before that, I was the same. I could never really picture myself working 20 years for the same company. I don't know. It's probably a thing of our generation.
Yeah, and also I think for our industry, one of the reasons why I was so excited about becoming a software engineer was all of the things that I got to learn. Every day felt new. There was a new challenge every single day, and I feel that working at the same job and on the same project kind of takes away from that a little bit. And I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe switching it up just brings a little bit more excitement.
Yeah, I mean, working at an agency or something is probably also pretty cool. So I talked to Aaron Bereskin before, who's also doing like world-class apps. They did the Pump app for Arnold Schwarzenegger and something like
Mm,
that. So if you can like work on these giant apps, I think that's pretty cool because I mean they might take a year or something, but then you also transition to the next big thing. Then he made a huge Bible application or something. So that stuff is really interesting. But Lark sounds a bit like. Is it somehow related? I know my what is it called? My Body Tutor or something. Isn't that like the biggest thing in the U.S. that people use to like get in shape and they got like their private tutor telling them what you ate and then they tell you okay you should probably eat this and that and do that sports. Is it like that? Is Lark like that?
it sounds kind of similar. I haven't heard of that app.
Is it My Body Tutor?
My body tutorial. I'll have to look into that. But Lark, so we actually team up with healthcare providers. One of our big clients is Anthem, and they are actually in charge of signing up users onto our app, and we use AI like you suggested to provide recommendations on how to live a healthy lifestyle. Um, it's really cool. We've seen a lot of great progress with some of our users. They find it really useful. So it's fulfilling in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's great, and that's I think one of the common themes I got the impression from your Twitter account and reading through a bunch of your tweets that you're not only into like working your ass off, but also into becoming a software like solopreneur or doing some sort of indie hacking. you had some interesting quotes you put out. One I actually liked that I wanted to pick up and highly quote retweeted here on the pod is that the biggest advantage you can get is to get in physical shape. And I can so much quote this. So I was overweight for all my life, and about 2 or 3 years, like after when COVID started, I started losing weight, and I lost about, I don't know, 20 kilos at this point.
Wow.
And at this point, I stopped smoking back then. I don't drink alcohol anymore, so I went like the full athlete mode, and I just feel so great every morning. This morning, I ran a 10K, like that's my usual distance, and for some people, that's like way beyond what they can do, and for me, it's like the usual Tuesday morning training, and it's just so much more than just being in physical shape. I think you said it in a tweet as well. It's like your whole confidence, your attitude to what you're capable of changes when you're in good physical shape. And I don't know if this comes back from your time as a PT or if this is something you picked up as a software engineer over the years.
Well, first off, that's an incredible story.
Thanks.
And I can relate. When I was younger, I know I'm still young now, but in high school more so, I also lost quite a bit of weight. We use pounds, so I want to say it's probably around the same 20 kilos.
Yeah, it's like 12 pounds, I guess, 10, 8, 9. I don't know,
Well,
something. It's
I
like
think
I always.
I think kilos to pounds is 2.2 times the 1 kilo. I don't know, some crazy conversion. For all the American listeners, it was like about 40 pounds actually that I lost.
Oh, crazy.
And so, yeah, I've experienced that life where you're unhealthy and just being in good physical shape, taking care of your body. I feel it changes your perception of just everything in the world, really. I think an easy way to put it is it's just one less very important thing that you have to worry about, and it allows you to think about other things. You know, having good health is such a staple that I feel everybody should prioritize. Once you figure that out, once you've got your routine, once you have a healthy body, you can actually start focusing on other, I guess, less important goals. It also you'll see that it also reflects in your relationships, in your work. That's the way I perceive it.
Yeah, it's so much more as well. Yeah, I have a daughter as well. She's now 5, and my wife and I are really very active and, like as I said, pretty much every day doing sports in the morning. And to her, this is now natural. Like this is this thing. Just dad is outside working outside in the garden gym, or you going for a run today? And what are you doing today? It's like it's so natural to her. And when she grows up, she knows how. Like for some people, they tell, "Oh, I need to get back to the gym. I haven't been to the gym for 3 weeks," and like they tell it like it's a burden to them. But actually, it's like just a good habit. It's just a thing of my day. It's not something I add to my day. It is just part of my day, and that's what I teach her. And I don't have to teach it. I'm just doing it. And I mean, that's how you pass things along to your children.
Yeah, I don't have any children myself, but that would be my intention as well. Your daughter's gonna grow up just thinking that that's gonna be part of her life. She doesn't have to try, she just is gonna think like, okay, I'm gonna do something active today.
Yeah, and just to quit this up because we want to also get into some technical stuff,
Yeah,
of course. We have some people around me, and they're like 30ish, 40ish. They start having back pain. And it's so bad they can't carry their children, and they just don't do something about it. And I'm sitting here is like super sporty, and I know you don't have to do this. Like you have to just go out 2 or 3 times a week, just do something. But if you in your 40s and you can't carry or pick up your child because your back hurts so much, and you're not doing something about it, then sorry, but you have certainly wrong priorities in your life.
That's tough. Yeah, and it's hard because I'd say, there are more often than not, are people not in shape, not
Yeah.
able to pick up their children. It's become a trend. So yeah, this is us advocating for. I know software engineers are listening to this. Prioritize your health. It's important. Take a break from the screen and yeah, work on yourself.
I can also vote for getting a treadmill, so I have a flexible desk that I can put up, and then I have a treadmill under my desk, so I'm walking basically while doing some calls or writing emails, and it usually helps me to already get to 10K steps per day, plus all the other stuff I do. So yeah, another trick for software developers listening to this. But I want to ask you something. I saw you recently burned $200 on the Google Places API. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm working on this app. Essentially, my fiance actually came up with this idea. We have a really hard time making decisions, like I think a lot of couples do, especially when it comes to like eating out or like going to see a movie, something like this. So I thought, how cool would it be to create an app that you can connect with your partner or even groups of people where, let's say you wanted to go out to dinner, you give it a specific category like you would do in Yelp. I want to get Chinese food, and you're given a list of options of the best Chinese food around you, and you and your partner or whoever else is in your group or party are swiping left and right on options until you guys have a match, right? So anyway, I'm currently building out this app, and one of the issues that I'm running into is actually querying the data. There are a couple of options. I've tried Yelp's API, found it to be a bit limiting. And then the Google Places API, I just started playing with it about a week and a half ago. And I checked my billing. It's just been me building this thing, and I got billed $200. So I'm not sure that that's going to be a good option for me moving forward. I definitely don't want to build it or put it into production and then get billed like $100,000. So I'll maybe have to play with it a little bit more to see if maybe I'm querying too much, but I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, you shouldn't get to 200 that fast.
Yeah, I know. I think part of the issue is that I was querying for 10 photos per restaurant. And it adds up really quickly.
Yeah, that might be the case.
Yeah.
So yeah, people be aware of that. Always set a spending limit in your Google account. I recently hit the same with OpenAI and the API. So yeah, one morning I got an email that I'm at my maximum. So always be careful and put in spending limits. Same for Firebase, by the way. I heard bad stories about people using Firebase and then getting like a huge bill afterwards. So be careful with that.
Yeah, I think it happens more often than not, right?
It does. Apparently it does. So I had a question, because on your profile it said I build iOS apps, but I know you're a React Native developer. So usually React Native developers doing cross-platform, doing universal stuff. You're saying especially you're an iOS developer. Could you explain why?
Yeah. So I do. Like you said, I am a React Native developer. I do build cross-platform apps. The reason why I wrote iOS developer in my bio was to more so speak to a greater iOS developer audience. I found that a lot of my followers were also building with Swift. And so, yeah, I guess to kind of that was kind of like the market that I specifically wanted to tweet or speak to while building. But I here and there I may start adding in some more Android specific content. But that's mainly the reason why.
Yeah, I was thinking lately I noticed a trend among, let's say, indie hackers, that even if they use cross-platform technologies, Flutter, Capacitor, React Native, that they kind of still focus on iOS because that's actually where you make most of your money. So it's cool to have an Android app, and yeah, you can reach more people, but usually like 80 or 90% of the income is actually generated on iOS. So I was thinking, because you also said you're sort of an indie hacker and trying to create your own projects, that you're also focusing on iOS. But I guess your applications with Lark and the previous ones you worked with were completely cross-platform for all the platforms.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I have a lot of experience working with the Google Play Store. And all of our minor, major app versions and upgrades were all done in both iOS and Android.
Nice, yeah. But I think you're still more in love with iOS because I saw that you tweeted a lot about the Apple guidelines. So the Apple styling guidelines are interesting. They're like a style guide of how Apple wants you to style your native applications, I think. Is that the best way to describe them?
Yeah, it's like their guideline on how an iOS app should look and feel, a native one.
Right. And there's a problem with React Native that you stumbled upon, which is that this stuff is actually not that easy with React Native, right?
It's not, yeah, and I was really surprised. I think it was a couple months back when I realized that there was not really an easy way to just pull in an iOS specific button or text based off of
But
their guidelines.
but what are we getting with React Native if we use like the button and then it compiles in iOS? Aren't we getting like the default button, or is there something else that Swift developers have access to?
No, it's not the fact that we're getting a different button. We are getting the same native button. It's more so the styling. It's for the developer that actually wants to go and build their app based off of those iOS guidelines. There is no public library that actually exists for React Native developers that allows you to use these iOS specific styles in your buttons, your text, your padding, stuff like this, even colors.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know, but maybe on Flutter it's implemented with like they have a Cupertino theme for your components. I guess that's how they produce this. But for React Native, I haven't seen this. I've seen the usual stuff with Tamagui, Native Wind, with Tailwind, whatever is popular right now, uni styles. But so are you taking on this project of creating a styling library for that problem?
I am, yeah. I'm in the middle of creating this library. It's going to be called React Native UI Kit.
No, another puzzle piece.
Yeah. I think it'll be cool. I'm unsure how much traction it will get, but I'm hoping to publish the first version within the next month or so. It's going to include all the basic stuff like buttons and colors and spacing and typography. It'll have all of Apple's design guideline variants and whatnot. And so I'm hoping that this will be a good way for React Native developers to get a very Apple feeling app up and running as fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that is something I've been looking for the whole time. So my background is in Capacitor and Ionic. I don't know if you heard about Ionic before. It's a framework for also creating cross-platform apps, and they have this concept of adaptive styling. So you use like an Ion button or an Ion card, and when your code runs as an Android app, it looks like the card styled on Android, and if it runs on iOS, it looks like the iOS styled version. So you're automatically getting like the right platform feeling for your application. I was always looking for something like that for React Native. So would it be possible with a version 2 to also include Android in that project, like also incorporating sort of the Android style guide?
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I don't see why that shouldn't be included as well. Like you said, I mostly tweet about iOS, so I think that's why I was focusing on that specifically. But I've also studied the Android design guidelines as well. I don't see why that couldn't be a possibility.
Nice. So I'm definitely looking forward to this React Native UI kit. I couldn't find it so far, but I guess you made it private so far.
It's private, yeah. You know that the name was actually it was actually already used by somebody, but they hadn't done anything to it for like 8 years. So I messaged NPM and they gave me the rights to the name, which I'm really pleased by.
Oh, cool.
So I'm currently I'm the owner of that name, and hopefully we'll have it up and running in a month or so.
So creating a library like that, is it hard? I mean, I haven't really created any good libraries. I'm usually the I don't know, the facilitator of showing people how to use other people's library, like I'm the man in the middle. Is it hard to do a library like that? I know example for Tamagui, Nate is doing a lot of compiler stuff and optimizing the styles, so I don't know, diff elements are removed and it becomes more performant. Are you doing anything like that with React Native UI Kit, or is it more like a basic library?
No, I definitely plan to incorporate performance as well. I think for me, like, and this kind of goes with my philosophy on that this solopreneur thing, where I'm just trying to like build something very basic as fast as possible, and see if it's proven, see if people will actually use it, and then optimize as I go forward. And I think that's kind of the general approach I'm going to take with React Native UI Kit. I want to build a very basic foundation with the iOS style guidelines. Hopefully it gains some traction. If I see people use it and there's actual interest in something like this, then I'll definitely continue to add and make it more performant. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. Please let us know when it's released. Post it on Twitter. I will check it out and maybe use it in one of my videos.
Absolutely.
So this is just one of your project. It seems like you're trying a bunch of different things, which is like the indie hacker way, throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. You're doing the React Native UI Kit library. You're working on the application with or for your girlfriend. And I also saw that you are or were working on a React Native Superbase template. Is that still in progress, or is it already done?
The React Native Superbase template is done. I haven't made it public yet. Although thank you for reminding me. Maybe
the
I
good
should.
old problem of indie
Yeah,
hackers.
yeah. You know what happens is, I'm working on a project. I see something that could be useful, and I forget to like fork it from my current project. So that this React Native Superbase template, it's currently in my other project, and I just need to separate the two. But yeah, I feel like I've always, like you said, it's the life of the indie hacker, right? You're just kind of building something, throw it at the wall, see what sticks. And that's kind of my game plan right now. So aside from my current employer, my sort of, I don't know how you say it, work away from work is building these small apps. My goal is to become a full-time entrepreneur, solopreneur. I want to be entirely self-employed, and I'm just kind of my goal is to just kind of create this portfolio of small bets, small applications, and using React Native to do that. Along with that, I'm also in the beginning stages of teaching about EAS and how to build apps as fast and easy as possible. I think there's a real market for that. I think people really are interested in something like that, and EAS makes it really, really easy to build apps these days.
Yeah, I agree. I also vote for Expo. It's a great service. And just this morning, I also worked on something relatable, which is Expo native modules. They have a place in their documentation, but if you look up anything on Google, you will just get pointers to their documentation. So I've been working on a new course for Galaxies, and it's so interesting because it's actually like not too hard. It's challenging enough that people are scared away, I guess, from creating their own native modules. But once you do it, it's pretty magical. Like I've been able to create my own native UI view and UI label in Swift, and then display this component in my React Native application with a local module. And my mind was like I know that it's possible, but once you see how easy it is, it's become so much better. And EAS is the same. I've used it before, and I know companies are using it, so it's not like a fancy feature. It's something that actual companies are using in production.
Absolutely, especially for just self-starting developers or people who are just building by themselves. EAS and Expo makes it so easy to just to deploy and update and continue to build on top of your application. And I feel more people need to know about it. So that's really what I want to do is just continue to spread that knowledge and help people build apps.
Yeah, and for everyone who also wants to become self-employed or, I mean, as a software developer, we have the perfect conditions for that. Like sometimes we even have remote jobs and we can like take some time off for our own projects. Or anyway, we can always use the skills that we learn at a job and then at night work on our own projects. And I don't want to make this sound easy because the space got actually a bit more challenging. It's not like you can throw up some shitty MVP page or a super shitty app anymore these days. Like people expect some sort of quality, but that doesn't mean it's not possible anymore. So if you want it, I think with consistency and just like putting in the reps every day, it's definitely still possible. No matter if you want to teach stuff, become a YouTuber, create a successful niche application. Like there's so many ways how you can approach it. And just like you started as a PT and then became a software engineer, probably you don't know exactly how you're gonna earn your solopreneur income yet, but just exploring the different ways and then seeing what feels good to you, I mean, that's a valid way. And to me as well, like as I said, I'm 6 years self-employed, and I still question a lot of the things that I do. I don't know if this or that is important, but I learned over the last year from the podcast, or what's it called, The Pathless Path, I think from Paul Miller. There's a great book that you don't always have to have a strict path to something. Like you can just wander around in the world and just making sense of what you're currently working at. It's not like I have the master plan. I haven't figured out stuff. I can tell you, I can have 60,000 followers on YouTube. I haven't figured out anything beyond that. So just enjoying the journey and getting better is what I can tell you from being 7 years ahead of you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I believe in that too. I think, one of my life's philosophies is, I don't like to force myself to do things that I don't want to do, and I also kind of like to wander and then just gravitate toward whatever I find I'm passionate about. And I feel that when I do focus on the work that I am passionate about, it turns out to be much more successful than forcing myself to do the work that I find, monotonous and just not as fun.
100% agreed. Yeah. You just need to find that, and sometimes you find the perfect intersection of what you really care about and what people are interested in and paying for, and then you hit a gold mine.
Yeah.
I said before in the starting of this podcast that this podcast is sometimes a bit like indie hackers, more technical. So I would love to know, before we wrap it up, what your stack actually looks like, because you've been working on this project, which you haven't forked, with a super base backend, but it sounds like it's like a greenfield application. You could use whatever packages you wanted. So what was your combination of tools and packages and in general the technology stack that you used for that project?
Yeah, definitely. React Native, I'm using Expo and EAS tools, EAS build, update, and submit. Supabase is the back end. That's pretty typical for me. Any apps that I build, I like to use Supabase. It's just so easy to get up and running.
Did you use anything else before?
I have experience. Yeah. Firebase was one, but I stopped using that just because Google is so unpredictable. I don't want to go through the headache of needing to transfer all my stuff to Supabase, which is where I'm at now. In MongoDB, I have a lot of MySQL experience as well. But my stack currently, includes Expo with EAS, Supabase is the back end, TypeScript always, and I mean that's kind of basic in terms of like style. I haven't played with Tamagui yet. I know that's getting a lot of traction. I personally like using custom styles in my own in-house libraries. I find that part one of the most enjoyable parts of development for me. Um, and then I think that's pretty much it. That's like the foundation of every single one of my projects.
Any other state management or specific libraries the application is using?
Yeah, that's thank you for reminding me. So, I guess when I first started, I was using the basic out of the box context API. I have experience with Redux. Most recently, I've really enjoyed using a state manager called Jotai. I don't know if you have experience with it. You seem to be familiar. It's really easy. It's built off of selectors. There's these things called atoms where you can reference anywhere in your app. I find it really helpful and easy to use. So that's currently what I'm using for state management.
Yeah, I used Zustand, which I think the Americans would call Zustand,
Oh, yeah.
but it's a German word which actually means state. And the same is, I think, true for yotai, as far as I know from my Japanese friend, that yotai also means state in Japanese.
I did
But
not know that.
yeah, I think they're pretty similar in terms of they're quite easy to use and not context based and more performant than Redux, because Redux is kind of overkill. I think people noticed this over the years. They're just still using it because a lot of their existing legacy applications are using it. But if you're starting out anything new, yeah, Yotai or Zustand, no, I'm telling you, Zustand are getting my vote as well.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like I said, I've used Redux in production applications, but find it to be a bit overkill, especially for like the indie hacker. I don't find it as necessary.
I found it interesting that Superbase is really like it's finally coming through. So I've been following Superbase now for, I don't know, 3-4 years. I really used their beta and then I made tutorials and like nobody was using it back then and it was kind of like a bet on something. But at this point, I think they did a lot of great marketing, of course. They did like these launch weeks and huge events. They're pretty active on Twitter about that. And now, as far as I know, they're moving also forward into the React Native ecosystem. They had some issues with React Native. I don't know. Did you experience any Superbase related problems with React Native?
Not at all. There's actually some really great Expo specific documentation on Supabase. They make it really easy to add authentication and in working with your database directly. I found it really easy.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem I had when I tried it the last time or tried to use user authentication is that, I mean, it's not a Superbase problem, but you usually get a confirmation email link from Superbase. And if you don't implement something like deep links for your app, that stuff's not going to work. So,
I see.
Adding deep links is always a pain in the backside for most developers, as it's really challenging.
Yeah. I haven't incorporated deep links in the current project that I'm working on now. I decided to use phone auth with Supabase, so that allowed me to kind of skip that email authentication flow.
How does that work? Don't you have to plug in like Twilio or some other API that's sending stuff to your phone?
Yes, so you do have to incorporate Twilio. You give it your SID, but it's pretty easy. I mean, it works kind of out of the box. You give Supabase your SID from Twilio. There's really not much other configuration that you need to do. You might need to like purchase a phone number, but it's really, really simple.
So you tried like the developer mode so far, not the production mode of Twilio. Is it like free for testing?
It is up into a certain point. I think you can send like X number of messages per day, and then to like X number of other phone numbers to send to per day. I am using a production version of it, but it's really easy, really simple, and Supabase has some great documentation.
And I guess your React Native app doesn't really have to work with Twilio at all, right? It's just Supabase and Supabase verification, right?
That's correct. Yeah, and Superbase handles all of the users the user management. So it's really easy. You don't really need to interact with Twilio outside of the app itself, which is really nice.
That's so cool. Yeah, I never thought about using that, but I mean, I really like it, and I guess one verification. How much is it? Like pennies and cents? I
Oh,
don't know.
fractions of a penny.
And I guess you don't have like 1,000 users signing up per day.
Yeah, and I don't. Although that would be a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, luckily I haven't gotten that $200 Twilio bill like I've gotten with Google Places.
Oh my. I have one last question before we wrap up. This is a very specific one. Because I always ask myself this. So when I use phone authentication with some service, I sign up with my phone number. I get this email. I get the SMS or whatever. I usually get a pop-up in that application that says, hey, do you want to paste this number 5678, something from your message into this input field? Does this work with React Native? Does this require any setup? I have no idea how that feature works, and is honestly one of the best things on iOS.
I know. I always see tweets like, this is the best feature Apple has released in the last 10 years. I couldn't agree more. It really is that easy. And to answer your question, it works out of the box.
Oh,
It's amazing. So let's say you have a screen on your React Native app where you're asking the user to input their 6-digit code for, I don't know how, I guess just magic of Steve Jobs. You're on this screen and you automatically get that 6-digit code pop right up above your keyboard. I think that's the prompt. Yeah. You just click it and it goes right into your React Native app. It's amazing.
I don't know if you have like multiple input fields. Would you have to mark one field for that input? How?
I don't. I don't ask questions. It works,
Yeah.
and I move on to the next problem.
Don't
It
ask
works.
questions if you don't want to hear the answer. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. I need to save some of that mental space for things that are actually important. But I mean, again, I can't iterate this enough. React Native and Expo, it's so easy to build an app these days, especially with Superbase.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my. You just once again flamed the sparked the flame, I don't know, of using Superbase. I definitely have to create a new, maybe I will just do a live stream this week because I enjoy it so much. I don't enjoy writing the SQL code and the row level security, but as far as I heard, they're actually working on something to make that easier. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, the RLS policies. There's actually
Yeah.
like when you want to create a new RLS policy, they actually have already pre-configured prompts that
Yeah.
you can press on. So it says like restrict user-specific access to this row. You click it, it already has all the SQL code created for you. You just press confirm, and it's already configured.
Yeah, they're like Superbase. If you haven't tried it, for everyone listening, give it a try. They move so fast. They also have a local environment by now, so you can spin this up with Docker. I tried this a few weeks ago, and after some problems with Docker, as I usually don't use Docker, I made this work, and I had my local Superbase instance and local data, and then I could link it to my real project, and like there's pretty much no reason at this point to use Firebase. So
I feel the same way.
unless you have reasons for it.
Right, of course.
All right. So, by the way, I want to wrap this up with the second best feature of iOS, which is, by the way, if I go into my Authenticator app and get a 6-digit code, I can just copy it there and 0.1 second later press Command V on my Mac and it inputs that number magically. In like,
Apple. They are doing some amazing things. They've been for years.
I mean, they did some bad stuff, and then some, like when Xcode updating is certainly not a fun. But yeah, they have some pretty cool stuff. For example, especially the stuff you don't expect, like this. I don't expect that to work, and it usually works. Or like sharing my network configuration with my wife when when we were in Airbnb, I'm already, of course, instantly logged into the network when we arrive there before unpacking anything else. And then when she tries to log in, I can just press on my phone to share it's how? I don't know.
Another one of my favorite features that I don't know gets a lot of attention is if you have two Macs next to each other. I didn't even realize this was a thing, but I was on one Mac and I couldn't find my mouse. And I look over to my other screen, and for whatever reason, my mouse was on my other laptop, and I was controlling it from my first trackpad. And it knew where my Mac was on my desk. And it was just amazing. I had no idea this was even a feature.
I assume you could also like drag and drop files from one to the other Mac then.
Yes. Crazy.
Oh my, this is crazy. This was a great episode. I really enjoyed talking with you, Brendan. Thanks so much for taking the time. I know it's 7 a.m. It's probably now 8 a.m. your time, so you can confidently start your day. I know you've been in the Starbucks line already at 5 a.m. So once again, thank you so much for joining. Where can people find more out about you if they want to follow you?
Yeah, people can find me on Twitter. My username is Bran, BRAN _ Aust, AUST. And soon I'll be releasing YouTube tutorials. You'll be able to find them there on my Twitter as well. It was a pleasure hopping on the podcast with you, Simon. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks. I'm looking forward to React Native UI Kit. So when this is released, definitely let us know. And everyone make sure to follow Brendan on Twitter. We're going to put all of the links we talked about in the show notes. And of course, also check out galaxies.dev, where I probably when this episode is live already have a new course on Expo modules. So go check it out, galaxies.dev for React Native courses. So thanks, Brendan, and talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.